What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 35 of Lobbing Scorchers. This is Ari Lillianwall. I got producer Noah here with me. Noah, say what's up to the people.
Ari, sorry, I'm dealing with the situation over here involving a raccoon and a trash can, Ari.
That's right, folks. We've got a furry four-legged friend who's going to be talked about on the show today. So we're actually going to lead the show with that. The Seattle Sounders did get bammed on 2-0 at Real Salt Lake.
We don't need to talk about that.
We're going to go in depth on that. Sorry. We don't shy away from results here at Lobbing Scorchers. But yeah, something happened in the city of Philadelphia that I've never seen in MLS. And it was great content. And we have a coach firing to talk about. That's big news. Our first sacking of 2024. And it was not who you would expect. So we're going to talk about all that and more here on episode 35. Before we get into that, as always at the top of the show here, I would like to thank all of our paid subscribers. We're sitting on 19 right now. And if you would like to join those people in supporting the show, all you have to do is go to podcast.lobbingscorchers.com, click the little heart, and you can pledge however much money you want, or don't sub and just stream and download. That's fine.
We did just buy donuts though to record this episode, so
we could use listener help to pay for our donuts and our coffee, but you know, it's definitely not obligatory. But I would like to thank our subscribers. I'm going to read them all off right now because we love and appreciate you guys all so much. We got Rhombus, we got Nate, we got Tyler Nakatsu, we got Owen, we got David Rodriguez, we got Christopher Maley, Bill Breitenbach, Mike Lentini, Aaron B., Derek Richards, Sounder Naves, Dan Pavetto, my guy Mike Standish, Ryan Shane, Eric Stanley, my nephews CJ and Miles Marinakis, Andy Hill, Ian Mitchell, and Greg Hoker. Thank you guys all so much. I know that's a kind of long list now, but I feel obligated to read it every week because that's how much we appreciate the support. And I also want to keep plugging the Lobbing Scorchers YouTube, which is now up to, I just checked, 58 subs, which is not bad, but our goal is 100 right now. So if you're listening to this and you have not yet, please go sub to the Lobbing Scorchers YouTube, where we're slowly but surely growing on there. 58 subs, not terrible, and our cumulative views is up. We're barreling towards 1,000. So you know, I wouldn't say we're going viral on YouTube yet, but we're working on it, and it seems like every week that we post a new one up there. We get a few more views and a few more subs, so appreciate everyone who supported us on that platform as well. And I also I wanted to notify everyone before we start the show today of there's going to be a little bit of a delayed pod next week. I'm going to be missing this upcoming game against the Vancouver Whitecaps on Saturday, which is unfortunate, but I do have a friend who's getting married.
Wait. You're telling me that a game, a Seattle Sounders game against the Vancouver Whitecaps, they're probably going to lose at home, that you're going to miss that, Ari?
I am.
For a wedding?
I know.
That's it?
It's unfortunate, but you got to blame my friend for getting married.
Who schedules a wedding during MLS season?
I know. It's crazy he didn't take that into account. I'm going to Bend, Oregon, though, so I'm looking forward to it, but it will unfortunately cause me to miss the game and just slightly delay the reaction pod. I'm going to be back on Monday during the day, so we're going to try and lay one down maybe Monday evening, which we usually send them live Monday morning. So if you wake up Monday morning, you're wondering where the show is, it's just going to be, it'll be up Monday evening or Tuesday morning. Is that fair, Noah?
I think that's correct.
Frame, that's when we're going to try to get it out. You can get on my case if it's not out by then, but I see no reason why we shouldn't be able to adhere to that. But I wanted to let everyone know, I don't want to leave anyone hanging on Monday wondering where episode 36 is, and you think that we're slacking on it. We're not. I have obligations this weekend, sadly. It's you know, like you said, it might not be the worst game to miss, to be honest.
No.
I mean,
but then again,
this Vancouver team, though, they are, we're going to talk about it, but they are in a little bit of a lull in form compared to how they had been playing lately. So maybe Seattle actually does have a chance in that game. So yeah, we're going to talk about this Sounders result at Real Salt Lake. But before we do that, Noah, there was as you mentioned at the top of the show there was a much bigger and more important headline that took place in the midweek slate in MLS last night. There was a raccoon pitch invader in the Philadelphia Union versus NYCFC game. And it was incredible content. So I want to do a deep dive on this and just talk about our reaction to the raccoon and how the raccoon was handled by the staff in Philadelphia. You know, they've had an interesting season between, remember the guys with the mops?
Yep.
That the Sounders were involved in that game, and that was actually also at Subaru Park in Philadelphia. So they've had a lot of curveballs thrown at them this year, and I think they've handled both of them as well as they could. You know, the guys with the mops, they didn't end up accomplishing their end goal because it kept raining. But I thought, you know, given the circumstances, they did everything that they could. But in this situation, you know, so when I first saw the raccoon, Noah, I was definitely, it became a thing where, and they mentioned this on the broadcast, where I was kind of rooting for him to get away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like he was running around and doing his thing, and I think he might not have realized the gravity of what took place when he charged onto the field. Yeah. It seemed like he got out there and was a little surprised, and he was like, "Oh, okay, there's a lot of people watching me, and now I kind of gotta do my thing. I gotta put on a show." And my favorite part of it, well, I had a couple favorite parts of it, but did you see he scaled the ad board at one point?
Yeah,
he
did a little trick.
Yeah, he got up on the ad board and was climbing on it very briefly, and then he fell off and he kept running around. And definitely the funniest part of the content was the security guards chasing him around and being unable to catch him. And I gotta say, like, when I saw him running around, I was like, I don't really know how they're gonna get him.
Yeah,
like, this is a wild animal. You know, I've seen this with dogs a few times. It's happened in a couple CONCACAF matches that I've watched where a dog charges onto the field and then a player goes and picks him up and takes him off the field and he's panting and it's kind of cute. That's a little bit easier to manage because a dog, you can gauge their reaction usually a little bit more. I mean, not always. When I watch the dog situations, it's kind of, you know, you don't know if the dog's going to wild out on you necessarily. Yeah. But a raccoon, I mean, even more so, you definitely do. I would never, there's no context where I would ever approach a wild raccoon. So I was a little bit, I was concerned for the safety of the security team at Subaru Park because when you're up that close with a wild animal, you really don't know what's going to happen. I will say, I think raccoons are pretty cute.
They're very cute.
They were debating this on MLS 360.
They had some terrible takes on MLS 360.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Bradley Wright Phillips, he said it was gross, which, you know, I can see the argument for it, but I really think that raccoons are pretty cute. I did have an apartment when I lived in Bellingham, going to Western Washington, where we had a little family of raccoons that lived outside the apartment, and I didn't really get along with them that well, to be honest. I remember there was one that he would climb on the tree outside my apartment, and I would walk outside in the mornings, or go to class or whatever, and he would always be staring at me, and they make eye contact.
Yeah.
It's really weird. Like
he was accosting you, perhaps.
Yeah, he would, and I would make eye contact back with him and be like, "What do you want?" You know?
Yeah.
And he never had a good answer to that.
That's the average. I think that raccoon might have been a Whitecaps fan, potentially.
I just didn't like how intense of eye contact he would make. This raccoon eventually did get caught. The way they did it was they had like 3 or 4 security guards chasing after him at one point, and just the funniest part was, it was kind of like when they're trying to chase a guy that goes on the field and they can't quite catch him. They're like diving after the raccoon and falling over. It was some real Looney Tunes stuff. But anyway, one of the security guards ended up procuring a trash can, and I gotta say, when I saw that, I was like, I don't really know if this is gonna work, because you're going to trap the raccoon with the trash can by putting it over. They were
doing like the bug in a cup. They were doing the bug in the cup bit.
They were doing exactly. They were doing bug in the cup with the raccoon, but I was a little bit skeptical that was going to work.
Yeah,
because once you put the trash can over the raccoon, how do you know that you're going to be able to get him into the actual trash can?
Once it happened and they got him, they had no clue what to do.
Yeah,
they didn't know what to do.
I didn't think. Well, first of all, like, they tried to put the trash can over him the first time, and he escaped. I think he might have escaped
like twice. Yeah,
and then on the one where they finally got him, the trash can actually made contact with the raccoon's head.
Yeah.
I was worried about concussion protocol.
Same. We didn't. You know, I think we're not talking about enough how the medical staff was kind of negligent in checking on the raccoon.
Yeah, I mean, the union did put out a tweet that he got given to a pest control company and they set him free. So
that's what they say.
We can confirm, at least by word of the Philadelphia Union, that the raccoon is in good health and got released into the wild, which is good to hear. But I was worried when they hit him with the trash can that they were going to injure the raccoon, which hopefully wasn't the case, and I don't think it was the case. But again, once the trash can was on top of the raccoon, they cut away, which was unfortunate. I was upset about that because I wanted to see how it was going to go. I don't really know.
I popped on. Oh, I can give you a detailed account.
Okay, so how did they get the raccoon from under the trash can to ensure that he actually got into the trash can?
Yeah, so immediately once MLS 360 cut away from the raccoon, I was completely disinterested in hearing anything that a bunch of panelists had to say about soccer because, frankly, like, who cares? You know? So they got him over, like, bug in a cup style. And, you know, when you get a bug in a cup that's, like, on the wall or something, mostly a spider, right? You get a piece of paper, you slide it under, and you take him outside. So essentially, they busted down one of the ad boards behind the benches,
no way.
Took the Adidas ad out, slid it under the trash can, and four guys picked up the ad board and the trash can and walked them off.
Oh, that explains it. Oh, that's good info, man. That's good info. I didn't know that. Because I didn't see that part, so I was really confused as to how they executed the bug in the cup and got the raccoon into the trash can, but that makes sense. Good info, Noah.
Yeah.
So anyway, the next cut that I saw was the guy walking off the field with the raccoon in the trash can. Did he have anything over it though?
Just the ad board.
Okay, so he did have the ad board. That's what I was wondering, because I was like, if you don't have anything on top of it there, that thing could climb out and escape. The trash can's not so big that it can necessarily hold a raccoon like that. So,
and we've known this guy to be an escape artist. You know?
Exactly. He had just proven it. Just
we watched
before.
The highlights.
We watched it happen.
Yeah.
So they did eventually get him off the field, and by the time it was all said and done, they actually at MLS Communications added it up. The raccoon made it 161 seconds on the field before they caught him. A lot of funny pictures were taken. A lot of funny videos were shared. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you probably saw it. But I had fun with it. We did a lot of content about it on the website, and it was certainly more fun to watch than the Sounders game. So,
you know,
it was definitely it was the highlight of the midweek slate in MLS by far, and it was one of those moments that. It puts the league in a viral spotlight, and not necessarily the way that you would expect, but I'll take it. All exposure is good exposure, especially there is a fair debate to be had on exactly how cute the creature was.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was pretty cute. Like, the picture that we have on the website is really funny. He's like smiling and running around. So,
I gotta say, DC United, your scouting department, it's getting really advanced, and I have to give that to you. I didn't think that we would see something new in the case of scouting teams, and let alone utilizing wild animals to facilitate the most direct scouting possible. But I'm proud of you guys, just changing the game constantly. MLS on top.
Yeah, just another crazy scene in Philadelphia. Once again, weird stuff goes down at Subaru Park. All right, I think is that a long and detailed enough?
Yeah, I don't think we talked about it enough. Honestly.
I mean, I could go in depth for another 10 to 20 minutes on the raccoon, but we'll move it along here. We'll dive into this Sounders game. I know that's why most of you tune into the show, but at the same time, for a result like this, I don't really feel that bad for going 10 minutes on the raccoon at the top of the show.
Yeah.
If this was a dub pod, we probably wouldn't have done that bit. But
raccoon would have been in winners for sure. But
yeah, I mean, we can still put it there. I didn't think of that, but anyway. Yeah, let's just dive into this Sounders game now. We get this over with. The Seattle Sounders went to America First Stadium at Real Salt Lake.
Worst name.
And worst stadium name in the league. Lost 2-0, unfortunately. But let's talk about the lineup reaction to start, because when I saw this lineup, I was actually pretty excited. We've talked a lot on this show about how we wanted to see just, something different, new wrinkles, new changes to the 11, just to see what would happen. Throw stuff at the wall, see if it sticks. And this wasn't necessarily a situation where Schmetz was doing it for those reasons. I mean, it was a situation where you had to rotate on a short week, and that was the motivation behind it. But I guess what I'm saying is it gave us a chance to see something that we haven't really seen this season in terms of the amount of rotation that took place. You had Moose up top, you had Georgi on the wing, you had the fullback duo of Sota Kitehara at right back and Cody Baker at left back, which I think that was the thing I was the most excited about, the Sota Cody Baker fullback duo.
It is kind of a good bit that anytime the Sounders have a young midfielder that they just don't know what to do with or like need to fill a spot, they're just like right back, plug him into a fullback position.
Yeah, Sota is not a right back by trade. I think I saw that he had one appearance there with Tacoma Defiance. So either way, not a whole lot of experience at the position, but screw it. I was down to see how it goes. And Cody Baker, we're longtime noted fans of Cody Baker on this podcast. So I was excited to watch that. You had John Bell at CB, who I think continues to play decently well. I think he's established himself as a good depth CB on this team who you can plug in and expect a reasonable baseline of performance from. You had Danny Leva and JP in the double pivot. So there was a lot going on that was theoretically interesting before this game started, but unfortunately the game itself was not very competitive at all. You had 2 goals for Real Salt Lake in this game. You had Andres Gomez in the 27th minute, and then Diego Luna, who I've mentioned on this show as one of my favorite young players in the league. He's got a fun backstory, came up through the USL with El Paso Locomotive before Real Salt Lake gave him his MLS shot, and he's played himself onto a nice upward trajectory here. He's been a U.S. Youth National Team player, and he's pretty fun to watch, and he hadn't really he'd been kind of falling out of favor with Pablo Mastroianni in recent weeks, so this was kind of him working his way back into the fold with a goal and an assist. He was the man of the match for them, I thought. He had the second goal of the match in the 58th minute. This is the type of game where, and this is just how I personally look at it, I know a lot of people kind of hinge on every result and get really upset anytime the team loses, and that's fair. But for me personally, I try and kind of detach myself from the result in a game like this because, I've seen these seasons go down so many times where I've just learned that throughout every season, there's going to be games like this where the lineup is kind of just chaos. You have to rotate. So you're playing a lot of homegrowns who don't have a lot of experience. You're playing guys who are out of position. You're playing midweek, so some of the veterans you're playing are tired. And then especially in this particular situation, you're also playing the best team in the Western Conference. So, I mean, I think I said it when we were previewing it last week, but I had pretty low expectations for this game. I was just hoping that it would remain decently competitive and that they could have a chance at getting out of there with a 0-0 or a 1-1. And really, until that first goal, I thought they were hanging with it decently well. I wouldn't say Seattle was on the front foot or anything, but I thought the game was relatively even until Andres Gomez scored that opener. Would you agree with that, Noah?
Yeah, I didn't mind. First, I didn't mind the lineup, and I was not shocked at all. People were really, really, really upset when this lineup came out, which I just thought was funny because you want to play Raul after he played 90 and then is going to play another 90?
He also stubbed his toe.
He did stub his toe, so he was on the injury list, which, I can't really blame him. That shit hurts.
I wouldn't have played him anyway in this game, even if he didn't stub his toe.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that
this was a perfect game to do the Moose experiment.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I had written down was the Moose experiment needed to be fully fleshed out. They never win at Real Salt Lake anyway. Even in the best of times, they probably aren't taking a result in this game. That's just honestly, I can't. I mean, it is tough. It is at altitude, and Real Salt Lake is really good this year. But even in past years, when Real Salt Lake has been pretty Real Salt mid, they never ever win there. I mean, I said it on the last show. So even if Seattle had their first choice lineup and was in good form, they probably don't take a result on this game just based on past history. Yeah. You throw in the fixture congestion and the lineup rotation, the actual odds of taking a result in this game were
pretty.
They were close to none.
They were close to none.
Yeah,
but I will say, I would have hoped that it would have been more competitive than it was. It was driven. It was non-competitive.
They were driven in the first 15. After that, no.
It got out of hand, especially in the second half. Both the goals they conceded were on counterattacks. So I guess we can talk about the sequences that actually led up to the goals themselves. I mean, the first one, it was a giveaway in their own end, and then Real Salt Lake. I mean, that first one, that was a sick counter. I'm not even gonna lie. They got out and running. They executed that very well. A lot of people blamed Cody Baker for. I mean, he was technically guarding Gomez.
That's a bad take
on the sequence. Yeah, where he scored. I mean, I mean, I would say too. Stephen Fry should have saved the shot.
Yes,
but
exactly.
He should have. But I think both Cody Baker and Stephen Fry were put in a pretty bad position, just with to me it's more about the original giveaway and letting them get out on the break like that than it is about what technically happened on the shot. But I do think that Stephen Fry would probably tell you that he could have saved that shot, and like Cody Baker, there's just not a lot of good options when you've got a freight train coming at you like that.
I think he did the right thing. I think he defended that literally as well as you possibly could. He pushed him out to the outside post so that Fry had more time and more space to actually make a save. I think Fry, if you're going to blame one of those two players, Fry's for sure way more to blame than Cody Baker. Yeah, that's my take.
I mean, and I saw someone point this out on Twitter, but you could, if you watch the replay, you can see that, goalkeepers, when they get scored on, oftentimes yell at their defenders, and Stephen Fry wasn't yelling at anybody. He wasn't yelling at Cody Baker. So I don't know if that really tells you anything. But
I mean, JP got absolutely cooked in the midfield, and same with Leva. Like, that counterattack was, in the whole entire night, actually, the midfield was so disjointed and so susceptible to that counter.
It was, and especially on that play, a friend of the pod, Mark Kastner of Sounder at Heart, tweeted a quite comedic photo of just like where the midfield was at when that giveaway happened, and everyone's just so flagrantly out of position, and then you had like three or four guys at least just around the ball, if I remember correctly. Kind of like, when you're watching a T-ball game and someone hits it off the tee and then the entire defense like flocks to the ball.
Yeah.
It was kind of a little bit of a situation like that where you just had a bunch of guys around the ball. So once Real Salt Lake won the ball, there was just a ton of space for them to get off on that counter and start ripping. And
it was still a well-executed counter.
It was a very well-executed counter. I do think you have to give them credit for that. And Andres Gomez, I mean, he's a good player. I believe he's a U22 player for them.
Was that his first goal of the season?
No, he's actually having a breaking season for them. He's got like 9 goal contributions.
That's pretty far.
So it's like, I would say prior to this season, he's sort of been like kind of their version of a Leo Chu in the sense that he was brought in with perceived upside that he hadn't necessarily realized yet, and he was, I think last year he had like 6 assists or something. Leo Chu had 8 assists last year, so it was sort of a similar situation. And then this year he's really coming into his own and becoming a big time contributor for them, and he hit a nice shot on that first goal. And then the second goal, it was another counterattack where Diego Luna made a really good individual play. But really the whole second half was kind of a bloodbath, to be honest. I mean, Real Salt Lake looked like Real Salt Madrid. They were running up and down the field on Seattle. Seattle wasn't generating much on offense. And frankly, like, I don't know. I thought this game could have been like 4 or 5-0 for Real Salt Lake. Like they were really cooking. I mean, they're one of the best teams in the league right now, and I think for me they're certainly the best team in the West right now. And I feel a little bit validated on that because I did say that I saw this coming last year with the Chicho Arango edition and the potential ascent of Diego Luna, and you look at the rest of their roster in concert with those things, and you could really see an upward trajectory under Paolo Mastroianni, and that's finally come good this year. And a lot of it is down to Chicho Arango producing at an MVP level for them. That's really been the thing that's boosted them from an average to above average team to an elite team in the Western Conference. But Chicho Arango didn't even score in this game. I thought Seattle, he had a couple of looks, but I thought his best look was the one he had from distance that was saved pretty easily. And other than that, I can't remember him getting all that close to scoring, but I think the thing is they're a much more well-rounded team than just Chicho at this point, to where if you kind of, if you hone in on Chicho and you devote so much of your game plan to neutralizing him, they have other guys that can hurt you. And Andres Gomez is one of those guys, and Diego Luna is one of those guys. And the thing about those guys is they're young and ascending players. So I think there's kind of every reason for them to believe that both of those guys are going to get even better. And at that point, you combine that with Chicho Arango and like a really good defense also that's anchored by Justin Glad, who's been a good CB in this league forever. I mean, they're cooking. I told you last year, did I not? I don't get to victory lap my takes all that often, but I told you that Real Salt Lake was cooking with gas, and we're seeing that come to fruition. And I mean, I just kind of envy, like, I remember Seattle used to be the team where they would have the edge in a game like this. This is one of those MLS games where you can kind of tell what's going to happen just purely based on the lineup, because you have a Real Salt Lake team that they really didn't rotate that much, if at all. I can't remember their exact 11, but I know Justin Glad was out there. I know Chicho was out there. I know Diego Luna was out there. I know Gomez was out there. They don't even have Pablo Ruiz right now, who is considered, he's kind of their João Paulo, I would say. They're kind of glue in the midfield, who he's got a really good propensity for scoring goals from distance as well. They don't even have him right now, and they're still cooking. And I mean, yeah, they cooked Seattle in this game. It was not 2-0 was flattering.
Yeah,
it could have been a lot worse.
And speaking of João Paulo, I thought he put up potentially his worst game since coming back from injury. I don't know what's been going on with him since coming back from injury. Maybe he's not fully fit. Maybe he shouldn't be out there. But I feel like the last few games, he's just been terrible.
Yeah, this game was definitely rough for JP. I would definitely agree that it was probably the worst JP game since he's been at the club. And there's washed allegations going around about both him and Fry. I don't really know if I'm ready to agree or disagree with those yet. JP has been regaining fitness coming back from injury, so it's possible that some of it is just him kind of regaining his footing and getting back used to the speed of the game and getting fully fit. So I'm going to see how it plays out over the next few weeks here. Personally, like, if I could put a prediction on it, I think he'll probably get better as he gets more fit and start looking like the JP that we're used to. But that's definitely, I think, not just to pick on JP or anything. I think it was a game where it was more the veterans who weren't performing at the level that they needed to than the young guys. I mean, I think that's definitely the case. JP was one of them, but you have a couple of shots, a couple of goals on shots that Stefan Fry should have saved. Although, to be fair, Fry did make a couple good saves in this game, and again, like, yeah, he should have saved those shots, but realistically, Real Salt Lake could have and should have had like 3 or 4 other goals in this game. So, and a couple of those were prevented because he made good saves. So I don't know. To me, it's more, I thought personally, at least, I thought it was more about the defense and losing control of the game in the midfield as well, more than the individual goalkeeper errors. But if you're looking at just the 2 goals that they scored in isolation and the shots on those plays, I do think that they should have been saved.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing you got to think about is, does Andy Thomas save those? I don't know. Maybe he does. I think he's really talented, but yeah, Fry did make some good saves. I think he had a lot of easy saves that he was able to make that kind of booned his average there.
He had a couple, like he had the one towards the beginning of the game that was a really sick save. The guy lined it up from just outside the. Remember, because they called him Left Paw Gavin Beavers.
That's
remember
right.
That save?
Yeah. Left Paw Gavin Beavers.
That'll go on like the Save of the Week compilation video. But that got offset by the 2 goals that they conceded, so that's fair to point out. But I just feel like if you control the game better and you don't make the giveaways and the defensive errors that lead to these counters where Real Salt Lake can get off and running. Maybe he's not in that situation, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think there's both factors at play.
Yeah. Well, speaking of non-veterans, how do you think Georgi Minoungou did? Because I thought he was such a bright spot in this match. Let's talk about this.
I had the Georgi reaction written down on the outline, so good segue there. He's still pretty fun, you know? I'm down for him to get more first team minutes. You know, I said on the last show that the whole Georgi experience reminded me of the Leo Chu experience a little bit, just in the sense that, you know, it's a similar profile in the sense that it's a player brought in with perceived upside that maybe doesn't have the experience to fully realize their potential yet, but they have there's a lot of talent and a lot of underlying physical gifts that you're hoping can develop into an impact player at some point. And I think the exciting thing with Georgi is that there's basically no tape on him. It's an entirely new experience getting to watch him play. And so there's the excitement of hoping that there's this ceiling that he could reach, which realistically, you know, that hasn't really happened with Leo Chu. And so now you have this new player who knows, maybe he could realize that potential. That being said, I mean, I still think the actual experience of him watching him play right now is like, this is not to rain on the Georgi parade. You know, I'm having as much fun with it as everyone else is. But it is a little bit similar in the sense that you have these good individual moments where he definitely, I would say, has beaten his defender one-on-one more times in the last couple games than we typically see Leo Chu when he's taking on a defender one-on-one from out wide. But the end product itself hasn't quite been there yet. You know, he doesn't have a goal or an assist, but he's putting himself in good positions, and he's a very direct player.
He has an Open Cup assist.
He does have an Open Cup assist. That's fair. Good point. One assist across all comps to Paul Rothrock, who scored the goal.
Two legends.
Yeah, exactly.
2 club legends.
So the end product, though, hasn't necessarily been there yet on the whole, but he definitely put himself in good positions in this game. There's actually one play where he got a little unlucky not to score. He beat his defender one-on-one, and he put a shot that was going to go on target and got deflected, but it's the type of shot that sometimes you take that and it deflects in, and it's just, you know, completely up to chance whether it does or not. And I think when I watch him play, it seems like he has a very good understanding of how to put himself in those positions. He just needs experience to learn how to get the final product to come to fruition, which who knows if he's going to do that. Like, there's just a certain percentage of the time when you have a player like this where they do make good on those gifts and that potential, and a certain percentage of the time where they don't. So time will tell if he's which path that he's going to go down. But in the meantime, at a point in the season where the season is still kind of dragging and there's not a lot of like fun storylines like this to hang on to, I was glad that he got the start. It was fun to watch, and I'm down to watch him play more for sure.
Yeah, at first I was very skeptical of the Georgi hype train. It reminded me of this Leo Chu-esque character, this Nuhu-esque character, this like almost like you're at a point in the season where no one has anything to believe in anymore, so they see this like dude who has a really good aura around him and has just kind of like physically really talented, but like no idea anything else about him, right? He's
not even on Wikipedia. I was trying to look him up. He's not on Wikipedia.
We better cook that up. We better get that. Lobbing Scorchers listeners, get this man's Wikipedia up. I know he qualifies now because he started a professional match. Yeah. So, but you know, I sign him at this point with Leo Chu going down with injury, and not having a player where there's very little or no tape. Is really helpful, I think, for the Sounders at this point, because you have to throw everything at the wall to see what sticks. But yeah, I wasn't so sold at first, but I think after this performance, you might as well sign him. I think he's way more physically stout than Leo Chu, which is one of my big problems with Leo Chu, is that he'll dribble, and then just gets bodied off the ball in the final third. And Georgi was making these really nice runs. Like the one that I remember very, very clearly is he got two-manned kind of in the second half, like the entire time. Dude just like gets bodied by two guys, kind of dinks the ball in between both of them, bodies them off, and then like has a run in on the box. And that's something that Leo Chu's, I don't think, ever going to be able to do just with his physical size. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting wrinkle, and you might as well explore it at this point in the season where there's basically nothing to lose.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, I do have one take about kind of along these lines that I was thinking about, which is that, you know, a game like this, I had fun with the rotated lineup for sure. I thought it was interesting to watch, and it was at least something different to watch, which that, you know, that's something that we've been campaigning for, so we can't complain about that. But I think it did kind of show that a lot of the changes that we were campaigning for, they're not guaranteed to make a difference. You know, in the aftermath of a tough loss where you have like more of a first choice lineup than this, it's easy to say, oh, like, why didn't you play this guy? Why didn't you play that guy? Why is this guy starting and why not that guy? But you know, if you go down the list of some of the guys that we've been talking about, I mean, Moose didn't score in this game.
Is the Moose agenda dead?
Like, the Moose agenda took a hit. The defense in general was kind of a mess with the JP Leyva double pivot and the dual homegrown fullbacks, which I don't think it was any of the young guys' fault at all. Like, what happened in this game? That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, it's not like the team's overall prospects at competing in this game got changed or affected at all by fielding a lineup like this. And, you know, like, granted, you are playing the best team in the West, but I mean, realistically, you were non-competitive. You were non-competitive in an MLS game.
Can I say something controversial?
Yeah, go for it.
I think if you rolled out your starting 11, I don't think the result changes. I think it might even get worse.
I don't know if it would get worse, but yeah, I don't know how much I think it would have been better. But I mean, this lineup got ran on about as hard as you can get ran on. Like, it was fortunate to not be a 4 to 5 goal score line. That's really, I mean, I haven't peeped the XG, but like, I would be surprised if Real Salt Lake had under like 2 XG.
Yeah, the X vibes were like 5-0.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just something to think about, because, you know, there was a lot of stuff with this lineup that we had been, you know, we wanted to see more Moose, you know. Paul Rothrock, after Leo Chu got injured in this game, which was unfortunate. Like, I know Leo Chu takes a lot of heat, but you never like to see a guy go down like that. He was emotional, and it was just a bummer because he'd been injured earlier in the season too. He had kind of just gotten back. He scored a goal in the DC United game, and now he goes down again. So unfortunate to see. But like, the Paul Rothrock agenda, like, I got, like, to be honest, took a hit in this game too.
See, I disagree.
What did he put
in? He put in a really that shot that Moose basically shot right at the goalkeeper. That was a Paul Rothrock ball in on like a stop play where I thought he looked really good, and he was slotting in a position where I don't think he's the best at.
That's fair. I mean,
I thought he did.
I'm pretty good. I'm sympathetic to the argument that the agenda didn't take like a full on hit, but I mean,
what's he supposed to do? You know,
make an impact in the game.
But he's not like
goal contribution, score a goal. That's what he needs to do. That's what he needs to do to further the agenda. Yeah,
he tried. Moose has apparently what every other Sounders player has, which is high XG possibility that he can't finish.
It's a tough position for him to be put in, without a doubt. But like, I really think that the Paul Rothrock agenda hinges on like him making impact plays in the game and getting on the stat sheet and giving you a tangibly better chance at pulling a result in the game, which is that's how you earn more minutes and more of a role on the team, you know. And like, to be fair, like, I'm not trying to undermine the Paul Rothrock agenda that we've espoused on this show previously, because the thing that I like about him is that he actually does make those plays when he's given the chance in these Open Cup games, and then even scoring the game winner against Houston last year. So sort of my argument for him is that he has been making those plays. But I mean, if you look just at this game, I really didn't think there was anyone who necessarily made a super huge case like they have to get more minutes, other than maybe Georgi, just for the fun and the excitement and the potential of it. But I don't know. I certainly don't think the Paul Rothrock agenda got advanced by 2-0 shellacking at Real Salt Lake, where he didn't like get on the stat sheet, or the play you're talking about. I did forget about that play.
Well, and he
could have had an assist.
He also got back defensively, which the post game presser, one of the things that Brian was hammering on was how dog shit the defense was, or the midfield was. But he was talking about how Chicho Arango is one of the greatest players because he comes all the way back to play on defense and to defend. And that, I mean, one, that's something we see Jordan Morris do a lot. So Jordan Morris haters get shit on. But number two, Rothrock was back there basically every play, sprinting the entire length of the field. And he was making stops in the defensive third. And, I think he did literally everything that Brian could have asked him to do, subbing in on that position, when that clearly wasn't the game plan to bring him on that early or in that position. So I got to say, I don't think the Paul Rothrock agenda took a hit. I just think that when you lose, you can't... When you lose and you don't score, like, it looks bad, but I think in the context of a shellacking, I don't think he looked bad.
Okay, all right. I'm all for the Paul Rothrock agenda continuing. I don't want it to take a hit, so I'll allow that take. Let's get into questions, Noah, and then we can jump into the around the league stuff. Does that sound good?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I got to pull them up here. I'm off my game.
Thank you, as always, to everyone who submits the post-game discourse. I know we don't get to every single one every week, but it's always good to take the pulse of the streets, check how you guys are feeling about the state of the team, especially in a season like this. So yeah, let's jump into it.
From Bard here, just going to summarize this one up. Albert Rusnak, can he just take a good first shot? Albert Rusnak's on a DP contract. We just saw that the numbers come out. Is this guy really worth it, Ari?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so should we get into the Rusnak debate real
I think
quick?
so. Right. Just quickly.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. Because I got actually a couple of responses about this after one of our last shows where we were kind of defending Rusnak. So I guess I'll just throw my my final take on the Rusnak debate out there, which is that, I mean, I think he's good, not great. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah.
I think the notion that's flying around out there that he's like this terrible, actively bad, detrimental player, I don't really agree with that. I don't think the numbers that you can look at from throughout his career really back that up. I mean, if you go back to his time at Real Salt Lake, he was a very good and productive player for them. Him and Damir Krylak had a really nasty 1-2 punch for many years down there. And just if you're just looking at stat sheet production, he's at like 49 goals, 48 assists or something in about 200 and something MLS games. So that's a pretty good productive player. Is it a carry the load DP that you can build an entire MLS attack around? I don't think so. I think, like I said, I rate him at this point as good, not great, which, I have to wear some egg on my face there, because when people might remember, but when he first signed, I was very, very high on the signing. I thought it was a great signing at the time. I thought he could thrive in Seattle with some of the players that he was going to be playing with. And they did win CCL, as I pointed out on one of the last shows, in the aftermath of that signing. So I think the initial signing, itself was validated in that sense, but should they have brought him back as a DP and tried to build the attack around him? I think that's a very valid thing to question at this point, because I mean, I don't know, if you just think about it from comparing him to some of the other most dynamic number 10s in the league, like a Luciano Acosta or a Hani Mukhtar. I mean, these are very, very explosive, dynamic players that put up double-digit goals, double-digit assists every single year, like clockwork. And you need a guy who's going to give you that type of output to be a contender among the MLS elite, in this league. And I think it's pretty clear at this point that Rusnak doesn't necessarily give you that. He's still a good and useful player, but like I said, I think what's fair to question is he a centerpiece, build the team around him type player? I get why people are feeling like he's probably not.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny, because if I were to have been given the option at the beginning of this season of Nico Ladero or of Albert Rusnak at the 10 for this season, I would have picked Albert Rusnak. But now,
I think we both would have.
Yeah, halfway through the season, I'm looking at what Nico's doing in Orlando, and I'm like, get Albert out of this team on a DP contract. I would, if it had to be a DP, even if Nico had to be a DP, I would much rather take Nico as a DP than Rusnak even on a TAM.
Yeah, it's funny. Nico Lodero's playing pretty well for Orlando City. Like, I wouldn't overhype that too much because Orlando City has been one of the most disappointing teams in the league this year. And Nico did have a 3-assist game the other day. I mean, I think Rusnak has 4 for the season, but Nico he has 5 for the season. But yeah, and in Orlando's 3-2 win at Philly last week, Nico Lodero played all 90 minutes, had 3 assists. Had he of assists. He had a 2-assist game as well against DC United earlier this season. So all 5 of his assists have come across 2 games. I think it's fair to point that out. But
vibes wise,
but like I was watching that Orlando Philly game, and he was pinging those through balls in there. Like it literally looked like vintage Nico, and just kind of it was the type of dominant performance from your 10 that. Rusnak hasn't really logged one of those.
I don't think I've ever seen him play a match like that.
He's had good individual games, and he's gotten his stats here and there. But I mean, let's look up his stats right now.
Yeah.
I mean, 0 goals, 4 assists in 744 minutes. Like I said, that's mid. That's good. That's good, not
fine.
great. If that's actually, I mean, you want your starting number 10 ideally, in an ideal world, to be on a pace that's like much faster.
And this isn't just a player that's talented or good. This is supposed to be one of the 3 best players on the team, and making a salary that is worth that. Is that? Absolutely not.
Yeah,
absolutely not.
That's a good point. All right, yeah. I think that was a good little section on the Rusnak debate.
We had to eat some crow there, but we will not shy away from it.
Yeah. Well, okay. Just one final thought though. Like I said, the whole idea that he like sucks and is terrible and is like this crazy detriment to the team, I don't really agree with that either. I think I come down in the middle of that. I know that might sound like a cop out, but that's honestly how I feel about it. Like he has been a pretty good, productive player in his MLS career.
I think everyone would, or most rational Sounders fans agree that he is a TAM quality player. Yeah. He is not a DP quality player. So we'll leave it there, and we will bring up another personnel question, which I actually really like this one. How are we feeling about Kitahara?
I thought it was an interesting situation for him to be thrown in at right back. And Noah, honestly, I thought he did pretty good. Like I think the whole goal in that situation is to not make any glaring, egregious mistakes and embarrass yourself and embarrass the club and embarrass the city. And I don't think he did any of those things. I don't know how much of his long-term future is at that position. So I don't even really know how much it's worth evaluating in that sense. That's not necessarily where he's going to be playing, but given the situation and given the circumstances and his lack of experience, I thought he acquitted himself all right. Do you remember him doing anything like egregiously bad?
I didn't think his play in transition was really good at all. I thought that maybe it was the first or the second goal. I feel like he got toasted and got caught out in the midfield or way too high up the field. But again, like I don't really take anything from this match to evaluate his quality, because he was slotted into a position. He's played one time, coming back. What is this? His like second appearance for the first team in an MLS match, maybe second or third. Like I'm really not gonna make an assessment off of this match. I will say I'm glad that he's getting first team minutes. It's good, but also like he does have the most drip on the entire team, so I'm a little biased there. He's a stylish fella, but that is how I'm feeling about Soto Kitahara. This one comes from Dan. I'm not embarrassed by this performance. I'm just disappointed. Can the Sounders put a discovery claim on the raccoon from the Philly game?
Please sign him.
Yeah, sign him. Why not? Georgi first team contract seems imminent. I know it's too early to make a call, but at what point, if he stays consistent, is he a better choice than Leo or maybe even Jordan? He's basically a Leo who can actually beat his defender, still question his decision making. This is exactly what we talked about earlier.
Exactly. That's sort of how I would describe it. Yeah.
Yeah. Just wanted to toss that out. Thank you, Sound Boy, for that question. Did Moose actually play in the second half, or was that just a mannequin in a jersey?
The Moose agenda took a hit.
I had this written down here on my notepad. Is the Moose agenda dead?
No, it's not dead. It's one game, and it's a game with extenuating circumstances against a very good team with a rotated lineup at altitude. So I'm not going to call the agenda dead off those factors, but I mean, it took a hit.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm very much lower. I keep lowering his rating.
Yeah,
every game.
We should be honest about like how much the agenda should really. I mean, he's a backup forward. Theoretically, he shouldn't need to be like carrying that big of a load. But it is. You want your backup forward to be able to score a goal in a game like this.
I just don't understand why you don't play Jordan at the 9 in this match.
Well, I mean, I think Jordan came on in the second half, and JP also subbed off at halftime for Christian. So I think there was a little bit of like trying to manage guys' minutes for Saturday going on.
Which is fine, but I felt like I don't know. I just felt like Jordan could have been way more effective in this lineup at the 9. I don't know. That's like, especially with Georgie. And like, we've seen how that Chu and Morris connection sparks, I don't know. I felt like if it were me making that lineup, I would have started Moose, seen if he had a good run of form, and then 45 comes, I'm taking him off.
Okay, so you wanted Jordan on earlier.
Yeah. Right. Well, I wanted him. Yeah, and I wanted him at the 9. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like all of these questions we've really kind of covered. I think this is what I'll do as the final one. No questions, just lots of whiskey. Is this season chalked yet, Ari, or are we still have things to look forward to?
No, it's not chalked. I actually had this written down. St. Louis, Houston, and Vancouver actually all lost their games last night, and those were the 3 teams that were ahead of Seattle on the table. So nothing really changed much from that perspective. They're still in a situation where if they can get on a good run of form and string some wins together, they'll at least be back up in the playoff mix. And if you can just make the playoffs, anything can happen. I mean, I don't think any of us necessarily see this team as an MLS Cup contender at the moment, but things change fast in this league. I mean, we've seen it with the Seattle Sounders many times before, where they start a season slowly like this and then they turn it around. So that could still happen. I don't know how optimistic I am that that's going to happen, but it could. And I mean, just purely based on where they are on the table, the season's not chalked yet. But I mean, if they keep taking L's, it's going to be chalked. I did have one more take, just based on some of the questions about Schmetz being on the hot seat. Mm-hmm. I kind of wanted to throw some numbers behind, my sort of sentiment that who the coach is and changing the coach doesn't necessarily matter as much as some people might think. And the example I wanted to use here was LAFC head coach Steve Cherundolo. Okay, Steve Cherundolo, I don't know how many people know this, but before he was the LAFC head coach, where he's been one of the winningest coaches in the league for the last few years, and he's become he's respected as one of the top coaches in the entire league. He was the coach in the USL Championship for the Las Vegas Lights, who were LAFC's affiliate before he took the first team job. And he coached the Las Vegas Lights from January 19th, 2021 to January 3rd, 2022, almost a full calendar year, okay? During that time, he coached 32 games. Do you want to know what his record was, Noah?
Let me guess. He had like 11 wins?
6 wins,
Oof.
3 draws, 23 losses, negative 36 goal differential. All right.
Now that's a coach right there.
So, and if you look at his numbers since he took over as the head coach of LAFC, January 3rd, 2022, he's coached them for 106 matches, 56 wins, 20 draws, 30 losses, plus 80 goal differential. Okay. So when Steve Cherundolo was the coach of the Las Vegas Lights with a negative 36 goal differential and a winning percentage of 18.75, was he like the worst coach of all time putting up those numbers? Like, no, obviously not. And that's why they ended up hiring him to their first team to great effect. The point is, a lot of the times, and I think Steve Cherundolo would tell you this, and I've heard many a coach express this sentiment. A lot of the times, a coach is only as good or as effective as the players that they have at their disposal. The Las Vegas Lights team that Steve Cherundolo was coaching, it was a really poor roster for the USL, and it wouldn't have mattered who the coach was, man. You could have had Pep himself coaching that Las Vegas Lights team, and they probably would have put up the exact same numbers. By the same token, him having all the success he's had with LAFC's first team doesn't make him the greatest coach of all time either. You know, a lot of it is just a lot more down to the fact that he has a vastly superior roster with great players, and he's benefited from that. It's not to say that coaching doesn't matter at all. I think I just bring it up more because when people advocate for coaching changes, like we're going to talk about Gonzo Pineda in a minute, the grass isn't always greener necessarily. You know, plugging a new guy in doesn't always lead to the results that you think it might just by virtue of making the change. Like just to make a comparison across another sport to drive the point home. Like you remember a few years ago when the Golden State Warriors were at the peak of their powers and Steve Kerr had to miss a bunch of the season because he had like back issues or something, and so Luke Walton took over, and they went like 40-2 under Luke Walton. You know, did that make Luke Walton a super great coach? Obviously not, because he went and coached Sacramento or something, and they were terrible because he had terrible players.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's sort of. I was looking at Steve Cherundolo, like the splits between his Las Vegas Lights record and LAFC record, and I was like, that kind of is an illustration of what I've been trying to say on the show the last few weeks when people bring up the Schmetz hot seat. Like,
yeah, you
have to think about whether that would actually change anything.
Yeah, I think the only interesting thing to actually bring up about this situation is in the Sounders organization specifically, how much involvement and sway that Brian actually does have in player personnel and over Weibel in general. So I think when people are reactionary about just firing Brian, they don't really have a reason for it. I think the funniest part is there can be a reason for it that is valid, and that is Brian does have a lot of say over the player personnel on this team. And to say that he doesn't, and to say that like this is squarely on the players and that he doesn't have talented players, well, it is partially his responsibility to make these decisions to get in new players or to get rid of players. So I think, and listen, I've been with you for weeks and weeks and weeks, years even, because people have been Brian out for a long time. I'm kind of warming up to the idea, just partially, you hit me in the microwave for like 8 seconds, that I could be swayed that this might be warming up for me and I might not be loving the Brian experience anymore.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily to say that an era can't run its course, and sometimes that change for the sake of change can be a good thing. I mean, we saw it in the previous iteration of this where I think the Ziggy Schmidt era, by the time it ended, it wasn't necessarily anything other than it was something that had run its course.
No, that's wrong.
A new era needed to commence.
No,
what's wrong about that?
He lost the entire locker room. People were walking out of training. People weren't showing up. Clint Dempsey hadn't talked to him in allegedly about a year. Like that was he completely lost the locker room before they did anything.
That's a byproduct of what I'm talking about. That's why you needed like a new era. And
but I mean, it was very
drastic. Forward. Yeah, by the end it was really bad, and you did have the game. It's true at Sporting Kansas City where things like went really off the rails. But like the result of that was a situation where you had a coach who had been in place in a really long time, and I think the whole organization benefited from just something new. And so that could happen with Schmetzer. I don't know. I don't know if it's at that point yet.
Yeah.
But I'm more talking about just the notion that a new coach in itself necessarily fixes all the issues.
It's not guaranteed.
It's not guaranteed.
It's not. Could it work? Sure, but it's not guaranteed. And yeah, I agree with you. Like everyone who's just hammering on that's the problem. It's a twofolded issue. You have to fix the player personnel. You have to fix the roster before any of that other stuff is going to resolve itself.
All right, let's move on to the rest of the storylines from around MLS this week. Does that sound good? And then we can check out of here for episode 35.
Hell yeah.
Winners and losers from this midweek match day slate in MLS. I mean, the first thing we got to talk about is we had a coach firing. Noah. First of 2024. Gary Smith of Nashville SC has gotten the heave-ho.
After winning.
And they did it after a dub. They beat Toronto FC 2-0 last night, and they still fired their coach. It was his 100th win with the club. They fired him after a milestone win. But yeah, Gary Smith is out. The first thing I'll say is that I'm surprised that Gary Smith was the first one to go. I thought it was going to be Gonzo Pineda. Atlanta United lost 1-0 to FC Cincinnati last night. I think they're winless in 7, still lost 3 home games in a row.
And Almada's hurt?
And Almada got hurt, and it just seems like the vibes are not good. So Gonzo, I mean, I think we talked about it on the last show, but Gonzo is next for sure, I think. And the reason I think that is because of comments that Garth Lagerwey made during the preseason, where he was talking about how there were very clear metrics of progress that they needed to make. And, Garth is a thoughtful guy. He doesn't just say stuff for no reason. I think it's pretty obvious that he said that to set a very clear and public benchmark for the type of progress that he needs to see for this staff and infrastructure to remain in place there. And I mean, it's black or white if those benchmarks are hit, and they're decidedly not in Atlanta right now. So that's why, reading between the lines, I think it's a matter of time at this point before a change is made there, unless something really drastic changes for them in the next few weeks. But let's talk about Nashville SC a little bit, because they're the ones that actually have made the change. Gary Smith has been their only head coach since they joined MLS, and he's had quite a bit of success there, I will say. They have a really nice, awesome stadium that I want to get to someday. They made the playoffs every single year. And when you think about Nashville SC, at least especially in their first couple years in MLS, I think about a team that's their identity was built on defense. Like, they're a very tough team to play against, tough team to break down. Very, very difficult to score on, anchored by Walker Zimmerman in the back there. They did a pretty good job in their early MLS years of signing guys that had experience in the league and knew how to win in the league. And I think that paid dividends for them. And then they also have one of the best players in the league in Hani Mukhtar, who he's been an MVP in this league. He puts up incredible crooked numbers every year. He's one of the most fun players in the league to watch. He's an electric, exciting player. And that was a massive hit of a signing for them. And between that defensive solidity anchored by Walker Zimmerman and Hani Mukhtar being one of the best players in the league, they built a very good, solid, perennially contending playoff team in their early years. And I think Gary Smith does and has gotten a lot of credit for that. I think if I had to pinpoint the downfall, it was just that it was two things. Number one, over-reliance on Hani Mukhtar. I feel like every time we talk about them, that's something that they came up. Their whole team has been Hani Mukhtar or bust. Yeah. If he doesn't play for whatever reason, like he has to rotate out, or if he's injured, they don't have anything at all on offense. They were having him play without a really good number 9 for years, and they finally signed Sam Surridge to try and fill that void. And I don't know that that's worked out to the extent that it would have needed to save Gary Smith's job. Sam Surridge, I think he's been playing a little better this year. I know he's scored at least a couple goals, but he's definitely, when you think of the top number 9s in the league, is Sam Surridge someone who's
not even in the conversation
coming up on you? Yeah, exactly. So that didn't have the desired effect that they needed it to elevate them along with Hani Mukhtar, and then also kind of losing that defensive identity. Like, they've been shipping soft goals this year in a way that they typically hadn't in their MLS history, and they lost that identity and just still had no other plan or idea other than Hani Mukhtar, and had, I think, ultimately kind of stagnated. And if you look at their record this year, they're averaging around 1 point per game, and they're at a point in their MLS evolution where I think their front office and their club brass probably really want to be making progress and taking the next step into the elite tier of teams in the league, go from good to great. That's their goal. That's what they're trying to do right now. And I think they felt like the project was stagnant, and so they decided to make a move. So it doesn't surprise me necessarily that it happened. I think the writing was on the wall a little bit, but it did happen a little earlier than I expected, and I am surprised that it happened before Gonzo, which, like I said, I think that one's coming.
Yeah, it's not surprising, yeah, like you said, but I was completely thrown off by the fact that Gonzo didn't get sacked before them, and I don't know. That's all I have to add. It's quite funny to me that Gonzo survived another day, but
yeah, I mean he's on hot seat watch right now.
I for sure thought that after he lost this last match, it was Jover for him.
Bring him home.
Bring him home. Bring him home.
The Philly Union are down so bad. I'm just not used to seeing the Philly Union down this bad. They did have a raccoon on their field, which was, a brief boom for morale for them, but 4 straight losses at home after losing 2-1 to NYCFC. I don't think Jim C is necessarily on the hot seat yet. I kind of consider him similar to Schmetzer in that he's a provenly good coach that that you can win with, and that making a change for the sake of change is not guaranteed to benefit you. But that's sort of, I follow the Sounders every week, every day. So, I feel like my opinion is a little more informed on that. I don't follow Philly as closely to know like how much their fans are feeling the Jim C hot seat thing. But I would imagine, 4 straight at home, like that's like you rarely see that in MLS. Like It's a league that's basically designed in a way for home field advantage. And Philly, we talked about it before Seattle played there. They've been one of the best home teams. They've been historically good at home. They never lost there. They had a crazy good goal differential there at Subaru Park. So, I don't know what's going on with the Philly Union. Thinking back to the Seattle game, like it's a little bit similar maybe to Nashville in that you have a team that's normally has a calling card of being really strong on defense, and just some of the goals that they're conceding, like the goals that they conceded against NYC. Well, first of all, Andre Blake is hurt, and remember, their goalkeeper was the same one who was off his line when Raul banned from midfield.
Yeah,
there was a goal that NYC scored last night where the guy was lining up a free kick from it was like between the corner kick and the 18-yard box, and he let it rip, and the goalkeeper was just way out of position, and the guy looked like he was crossing it, and it went in because the goalkeeper just totally whiffed on it.
Yeah, bammed off the post and in, right?
Exactly,
yeah.
And I just don't know. I think their backup goalkeeper is hurting them right now. They're making a lot of really bad defensive errors, and they're not just dropping points at home, but losing games. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I'm just not used to seeing the Philly Union like this. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, they're doing the Inter Miami bit, but without Messi right now. Like, you can score on them in transition, like, easier than, honestly, Inter Miami. Like, it's hilarious. That game last night, I watched a through ball be played, and I'm like, oh, well, there's going to be a defender back there, right? There's going to be a defender back there, right? And then it's just bam, back of the net because there's no one covering the entire right side of the field. I don't know what's going on with the Union, but honestly, I'm here for the collapse because they have so many young prospects. Like they deserve to go through like all of the things that they're going through just purely because like you have so much talent. And also I think it's funny that it seems like literally every stage of the plague is happening on their home field. Like maybe we need like an exorcism because they've got like mass floods, animal infestations, like what, you know what I mean? Like what else could there be?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of the biggest storylines that I'm paying attention to. Like what's the next crazy thing that's going to happen at Subaru Park other than them losing another home game? The Vancouver Whitecaps lost 1-0 at Colorado.
Can't do that.
I think that's relevant because we can kind of use that to preview Seattle's next opponent, which Vancouver come to Seattle on Saturday, which, as I said at the top of the show, I'm going to miss the game, sadly. But the Whitecaps, to start the season, they had, I think, rightfully established themselves as one of the surprise best teams in the West. And they're going through it a little bit now themselves. They got bammed on 3-0 at LAFC and then turned around midweek at Colorado and lost 1-0 at Colorado. It was a little bit of a weird game in that they got a dog-so red and then Colorado got a penalty, and that was the only goal of the game. So, maybe if they don't get that dog-so red, they take a result in that game. I still think the Whitecaps are pretty damn good. I mean, Scottish Messi, we saw him the last time that they played Seattle. He kind of cooked Seattle. So he's an example of a true centerpiece, build your attack around it type number 10. And then, Brian White, always dangerous. And they're usually more solid on defense than to give up 3 goals in the game and then get a dog so red. So I actually think, Noah, that this creates a much more dangerous opponent for Seattle because they've lost 2 games in a row and they need to right the ship. They need to get back to how they were playing earlier in the season. So, and they also already know they can compete with and beat Seattle. So, I think you would almost rather catch them in a slightly better run of form than this and hope you can get them like overconfident than in a situation where now they're kind of desperate because they're going to be going all out on Saturday.
Yeah, and there's nothing easier than to get a get right game against the Sounders at home. So
especially a rivalry game.
Yeah, it's over for their down streak, I think personally. I don't know what lineup's going to show up this weekend, but
for Seattle?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I would imagine it would be a lot more first choice because, depending on the status of Rui Diaz's stubbed toe, which, I don't really know how severely he stubbed it or what he stubbed it on or what exactly happened with that. But like,
take an Advil, bro.
Assuming that the stubbed toe is healed, I would imagine he'll start in the game. And then Obed didn't play in the RSL game. Out of what Schmetzer said, I believe was an abundance of caution. He just felt like a little bit of tightness in his hamstring, which for a Sounders player, that's the alarm bells.
Yeah.
I think Schmetzer did the right thing by holding him out.
That's like hurricane warning.
Yeah, exactly. But hopefully that hamstring tightness has subsided and Obed can get a start in this game again at
Stretch
that right mid
kid.
spot. Playing at home with a lineup that, to be fair, the last couple games that the first choice lineup has played, they actually have scored multiple goals in those MLS games at Philly and at Portland. So theoretically, playing at home against a Vancouver side that is in a slight downturn in form, I wouldn't predict a dub in this game, but I think a result is attainable.
Yeah, and a huge shout out to Ian Mitchell, who slid me his tickets for this game. I'm taking my nephews, so shout out to you. I appreciate you. Go Sounders. I don't know.
All right, let's jump into the winners, I guess. We can make this pretty quick and then call it a wrap here.
Mm-hmm.
I got the New York Red Bulls. They bammed on DC United 4-1. If you haven't seen this goal that Elias Manuel scored, one of the best goals of the season, it was a little bit similar to the one that Rui Diaz scored in Philly, except I think it was even better. It wasn't as far away from the goal, but he had like a defender right on him, and he kind of just bodied him off and then noticed the keeper was off his line and then chipped it right over him from way outside of the box. That was a sick goal, and I think my takeaway from that is that this Red Bulls team is pretty legit. They got slammed by Inter Miami a couple weeks ago, but I mean, a lot of people get slammed by Inter Miami, and I think by and large, the Red Bulls they look like a team that has an identity again. But then they also they signed Emil Forsberg, who he looks like a centerpiece type designated player for them.
He needs to call his wife and kids, though.
That is true. He is taking heat for that. But as far as his play on the field for RBNY, he's doing pretty good. And their team just looks it's a little bit different. When you think about Red Bull soccer, it's like energy drink, high press, like kind of chaos ball a little bit. And they've been a little more dialed back, I would say, from what I've watched this year compared to those past years. But then in this game, they sort of turned that up again, and they were running all over DC, who we were talking about, DC and Christian Benteke. They've looked pretty good at times this year, so that was a good win for the Red Bulls. LAFC took a 2-0 win at St. Louis City SC. We clown on LAFC a lot here, but I'll give them credit when they do well. I think the notable thing here was Denis Bouanga had a brace in this game, and sort of as long as that guy's on their team, LAFC can be a problem in any individual game, and you kind of saw that in this game, even though St. Louis do look like they have taken a step back after their kind of blessed year last year.
Yeah. Are we putting in the biggest winner though?
Who do you got?
Gary Neville. He survives.
Phil Neville.
Why did I say Gary? Oh my
Gary
God.
Smith got fired.
Gary Smith, Phil Neville. Phil Neville. Biggest winner of the week. Ari.
Okay, we can talk about that because I'm not putting. I was actually thinking of still putting Portland in the losers section.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
they beat the San Jose Earthquakes 4-2,
and we're bragging about it.
This was one of the worst games It was entertaining, but like just every once in a while you see the type of game that makes you believe that the people who make fun of MLS kind of have a point.
Yeah.
This was one of those games. So let's be clear. The Timbers were getting bammed on 2-0 at home by the San Jose Earthquakes, who have been one of the worst teams in the league all year. It was 2-0 at halftime. Did you? Oh yeah, you sent me the broadcaster.
Yeah,
so there was a pretty funny moment where the Portland Timbers radio broadcaster was he got caught on a hot mic. It was halftime. He thought that they had cut to commercial, I guess. And what did he say? He was like,
he was calling back to the like announcer in the booth and going, da, 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 hey, Brian, you want to coach?
Steve, do you want to come coach this team?
Can't be any worse.
You want to coach the team, Steve? It can't be any worse. Which, oh man. And then I saw he tweeted out an apology today.
Cowardly.
I don't know. I felt bad for him. It's
cowardly.
Pretty embarrassing. But anyway, so that was the state of things for the Portland Timbers at halftime. They got the way they got back into this game was they had a shot on goal, and the San Jose Earthquakes defender, he almost made an insane play. Did you see this?
Yeah.
He had a goal line clearance, and it did hit his hand, and they gave him a dog so red. I thought that was pretty harsh. It did hit his hand, but like he wasn't making himself big, and I didn't know if there was all that much he could have done to avoid the contact that it did make. I don't know if that. I think that probably matters less when you're in the goal like that. If you're in the goal like that and it hits your hand or arm, it's probably, you can't be shocked if you get the dog so red. But it was still like, I don't know. He was pumped after he made the play. He thought he had it, and I kind of wanted them to give it to him because it would have been a really sick play by the defender. But either way, he gets a dog so red. And Portland cuts it to 2-1 from the spot, and then they end up tying it, and then getting two more goals. But it was a pretty trash game to watch, and basically the only reason the Timbers came back was probably because of this dog so red that may or may not should have actually taken place. But I haven't watched the Phil Neville presser yet. I'm sure he was very
pumped,
happy.
bro.
I'm sure he was pumped.
He was pumped. It was honestly awesome. The clip that I saw, he was like, "Oi, bruv, listen, those supporters back there, they willed this team. They willed that ball in the back of the net, mate. They willed that ball in the back of the net. I'm so proud to be coaching this team. We have things to work on. But, mate, oh, my God, I'm just so proud of this club."
Yeah, I mean, that adds up. We'll see how the Phil Neville era continues to go. I mean, taking a win like that against the Quakes, I don't know how much that changes their fortune.
I don't know.
But to be
their
fair,
fans were pretty hyped on Twitter about beating the Quakes.
I mean, honestly, though, like a dub is a dub for them right now, especially after that Seattle game. So, and honestly, based on how the Phil Neville era had been going before that game, I think Seattle people probably want him to stay in charge there as long as possible.
Lifetime contract.
But it was pretty funny how that all panned out. All right, my last winner of the week, Columbus Crew, bammed on CF Montreal 3-1 on the road. And we were talking about last week they lost hell is real to FC Cincinnati, and we were talking about just the perils of juggling CCC. I mean, the Crew didn't actually look like they were struggling with it that much in this game. They I watched some of this game. They looked like vintage Crew, and yeah, I mean, to me, it's them and Inter Miami kind of at the top of the league right now, and that's the situation. I think there's a pretty stark drop-off between them and everyone else. I mean, FC Cincinnati is up there, Real Salt Lake is up there, but for me, I've got like Inter Miami and the Crew as 1A, 1B right now.
Yeah, no, I thought that game was honestly kind of sick to watch. That was like my opener, and... yeah, I don't know.
They're fun to watch.
They're so fun to watch, and I think it was always destined that Wilfred Nancy was going to beat his protege, But like still, I mean, what a game. And like people have been saying that Montreal are trash, which is just false. That's a good team.
I would say mid, but not trash.
Well, I see. Okay, here's my thing. They way outperform what their roster is.
That's fair.
And so like I think that they're coached really well.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. That's what I would say. If you're Atlanta United, you're trying to get the I don't even know his name. I always forget the Montreal coach.
Laurent Courtois.
Yeah.
Give Laurent Courtois a roster as good as Atlanta has.
Yeah.
And you probably have a sick team.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's call it there for episode 35. I think we cooked a pretty long one there, so we can get up on out of here. Thank you to everyone who keeps listening and supporting the show. We've been averaging like over 400 downloads per episode the last 4 or 5 episodes. We really appreciate all the support. If you want to support the show, you can go to podcast.lobbingscorchers.com, click on the little heart. We really appreciate everyone who's already done so, and hope to see more of you there in the future, but not obligatory. We just appreciate you listening. If you haven't yet, go ahead and rate 5 stars, subscribe.
We need some more reviews.
Comment. We need more reviews. We need more YouTube subs. Anything you can do to help support and grow the show, we really appreciate. Like I said, I'm going to be out of town this weekend, so it'll be a little bit of a delayed reaction episode from the Vancouver game. But don't worry, like we've gotten so much support these last couple months that we're going to keep grinding these without a doubt. So if you don't see it on Monday morning like you normally would, don't worry, we're going to get that thing out there. I'm going to have to catch up on the game and figure out what happened. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to watch it live, but I'll lay down maybe I'll lay down the takes without watching it.
That would be so fire.
That could be fire.
Yeah.
Just look at the scoreboard and then see, and then you can tell me if my
I like that. Yeah.
Maybe we'll toy with something like that. I don't know. But anyway, thanks again to everyone for listening. We're going to call that one for episode 35. Until next time, we out.
Peace.